now you're at the end of the week. I'm sure you've seen how those two concepts that I'm trying to explain to you in terms of like organization, order of operations. Do you remember every move you saw this week? No, right? But do you have like maybe a general sense of how these guys are putting their shit together? Okay, so you learned something. Take that, do it yourself. Nobody else is building your Lego castle for you. You know what I mean? Like you're doing that. So listen to everybody. And you know, the jiu-jitsu is full of fucking egos, right? And I mean, part of it's necessary. If I didn't have an ego, I probably wouldn't have got good. I wouldn't be competitive. But what I've noticed from traveling the world and competing with a lot of high-level people is that sometimes that's like way out of control. Not always, but a lot of the time, okay? You don't have to be that way if you don't want to. Like, you can listen to people. You don't even have to think they're right. You know, you can sit there and this is how you do it. Okay, cool. What do you think? Watch them. You're not gonna see them next week. You know what I mean? You can go back to your gym, try it honestly, because everything feels like it doesn't work at first, right? Because it doesn't, you're not good at it. But like as you get good at it, it'll start to work and you build it out your way. So my point is just to like, listen to all the coaches here, but in the end, do whatever the fuck works for you, right? And if you're not progressing after spending, 5, 6, 7 weeks working on something, which is what it would take to usually get something down, right? If you're still finding it doesn't fit or another answer to that same problem works better for you, well then use that, because there isn't the objective part of jiu-jitsu is the problem answer thing. Like, if you're going left, I'm not going to use a move that goes right. I need to use a move that goes left where your body weight is being carried, right? But there's probably 10 moves that go left for that context that look very similar, that have very different, like slightly different details maybe, or they're really different. So there's a lot of right ways and a lot of wrong ways to do essentially anything. And as long as you're like, if you think of like a video game, like you have maybe weapon slots, like you have like a heavy weapon slot, as long as it's a heavy weapon in that slot, it works. Like that's kind of how you're building out your game, right? So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Easy. So we're gonna use the front headlock today. Something that I've used a lot at a pretty high level. Pay close attention again to how I'm organizing not just the system, like flowchart, not just like the moves, but again I'll repeat like how I'm assessing the problems and weighing the solutions. Why use this solution versus this solution? What's my argument to that? You might have a different one, but at least like listen to why I'm doing it that way. Okay, because that's what I think you're gonna take home with you. Okay, so let's start with like how to capture the head. We'll get into like the arming guillotine is what I'll work today. Right? If you high elbows, arm out guillotines, they are great. To be honest, they're even more powerful because there isn't a shoulder in between. And we could do a whole day on that, but if we start I'll get our signals crossed if I go into that, right? Because the arming system, kind of everything connects. And the defenses, how somebody defends an arming guillotine versus an arm out guillotine is actually very different, right? When you have somebody's head and arm, they're trying to cross your body, they're trying to not stack you, but tripod on you, right? When you have two hands on somebody's neck, they're trying to roll out. So it's like very, very different how they'll respond. So we'll stick with the arm in. Also with the arm in, you have easy connections to Darce's, anacondas, Japanese neckties, Peruvian neckties, so lots of cool stuff, right? So we'll get into some of that too. But we'll start with just how to set up an arming guillotine and where you can go from there. So give me some pressure here. Let's start with your opponent on their knees, and you're gonna be blocking the intersection of their shoulder and their neck, like a thumb post, like that, okay? Now, I'm always on one hip, and I have one hand behind me. Why? Because if he pushes into me, I want to be able to have enough structure to withstand that pressure that he's bringing forward, right? Now, from here, if I feel somebody's pushing into me often, and I can use that weight against them, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna switch my hand behind the crown of his head, not his neck, okay, but up on the head so that the head bends. Okay. And as I move my hips out of the way, I'll be trying to pull him down to his hands. Oftentimes those hands will have been like trying to interfere with me. Let's say you're trying to put your hands on my shoulders or something like this, right? Get the head, back away, snap, his hands go to the mat, right? Now something else that you could use to help is you could kick a foot. Technically you can kick either foot too, right? Oftentimes I'll kick this one because I like to, honestly, it just feels comfortable. That's the real reason. So you could do either. So he's pushing into me, I'm gonna snap and kick, right? So my next movement here has to be to get my feet clear of his head and pull my feet back like that, right? Now if I wanna get up, I would be getting up on my hand and my knee, and I'd be bringing the low hand under the chin, and we capture a front headlock. Now you could also pull somebody's head down next to you and capture a front headlock like this, okay? If you want to, you can do either in just about any situation, but I'll explain what I think is better. Stand up. When I'm standing, if I feel like I can move somebody's body, I'll use like a wrestling snap. Same arm, same side to the guillotine. If I feel like I can't move them as much, I'll use the cross snap because I don't have to get them as low. So I'm giving you reasons, but it feels good to me is a good enough reason, right? Get on your knees. If I'm getting up, I'll use the cross snap, feeding it to the other side. If I'm staying low, I'll often use the straight snap to the same side. Okay, so again, I'll reiterate, you can use any of these in any of those scenarios, but that's my preference, okay? So we're gonna be getting up. You can put your hands on my shoulders or on my knees, yeah. I'm gonna reach for my collar tie, right? Maybe go to the inside. I'm gonna make sure that I connect to his knee with my foot and I'm on a post, okay? So I'm gonna kick this leg out, snap the head, and vacate my hips all at the same time. The power comes from my hips, so that's kind of the first thing to move. Now I bring my feet back and I start to push myself up. You cup the chin, okay? Your shoulder makes contact right here, right where the neck and the shoulder meet, and it locks in. If your shoulder's on top of somebody, they're gonna slide out. So grab me in front headlock. That kind of stuff, right? You don't want people to slide out. So you need to make contact like right here. See that? So feel that click in like a Lego piece. I know I use a lot of Lego references. Can I put hands on me? Now, this hand is gonna grab the elbow. So the 3 points of control when you enter the position, right? Shoulder position, chin pick, okay, cupping the whole chin, and elbow. If you can maintain control of those 3 points, your opponent won't move well. They'll still try to move, but they won't move well, okay? Next thing, make sure that your legs are torso's length away from your opponent. So if your shoulder is clicked in here, and I'll do it on this side now, if your shoulder is clicked in here, then your knee should be like a torso's length from his head, right? Wherever this knee is, this foot should be on the same line. And when you're posting a leg to drive weight into somebody, it shouldn't be flat on the mat. It should be the inside line of your foot. With your knee facing down, if you notice my knee looks like the kickstand of a bicycle, that's what you're going for. Okay, I'll ask him to explain. How does the pressure feel now? Feel strong?
Yeah.
How does it feel now?
It feels like no weights on me.
Okay, so just that detail is what directs your weight towards the person, okay? So let's work first on getting the snap, getting up to the front headlock position, right? And obviously if you're not a guillotine person, take the back from there. It's like, you're in a great spot to work out a back attack. So you don't even have to be committed to front headlock finishes for it to be a necessary position. You want to use it, it's available. The head is the apex, right? It's or the superlative control you can get on somebody is to get to their head, right? Getting to their head from behind is better than in front, but in front's better than not getting to their head. Okay, so one more time. 1, 2. This is harder on the outside. If you're on the outside, this is called an over tie, okay, rather than a collar tie. You'd rather have the collar tie. Okay, you'd also rather have a closed elbow, right? So 1, 2, 3. He's driving in. I move my hips back and I snap and push. I bring my feet back and I climb and capture. Let's give that a shot, guys. Okay, a couple quick concepts from this that are going to work for you in general. So let's get into the position on turtle, basically. All right, also, hands or elbows? Question, right? Wrestlers are going to be on their hands. Why? I didn't understand.
They don't do chokes, so they don't.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, you're saying you drive, right? You're stronger on your hands and they don't get choked. Why not get on your hands? Jiu-jitsu players are often going to be on their elbows. Why? You can use your hands to defend. Does this mean that you'll never see a wrestler on his elbows? No, less likely. Jiu-jitsu, you probably see both, but it's a tendency. You're going to see more often that wrestlers will be on their hands, and more often jiu-jitsu players will be on their elbows. What does that mean? It means that if someone gets their hands, fucking attack the neck, and that's the moment. And if it didn't feel there, that's just you're not good enough yet. Like attack it every time they get on their hands, and eventually it'll feel right. Right? If you're waiting for it to feel better, you're waiting for something that doesn't exist. Okay? That's the moment. If he's on his elbows, that's different. There's hands involved. We're making a more clear assessment about whether that space is open. But if he's on his hands, that space is as open as that space gets, really. Okay? Or at least with that guy. So that's one thing. Let's get to the elbows. So next thing, when I talk about organization, this is another time we can kind of drop in on that. You have a few things going on with the position, right? I want to be in a front headlock. So what are the variables in the position? What I mean by variable is a point of interest that could be in my favor or be in my opponent's favor, right? So point of interest, point of connection, where am I touching them? Where are they touching me, right? Or where do they have freedom to move something? So variables, control of the head, right? What does that do? Well, he can't free his head and he can't pull away. Try to pull away, can't pull away. Shoulder position. Try to move forward, can't move forward. So we can't move forward or backward, right? Those are two variables. If I didn't have that grip, he'd be able to move forward or backward. Those variables would be in his favor. Okay. Elbow. If I control his elbow or around his arm, it's different things, but he can't move side to side. He can't sit out, right? And my weight distribution, always, it's like always a variable, right? If I'm leaning on him correctly, he won't be able to off balance me. But if my weight is too far back, he'll be able to run away. And if my weight is too far forward, he'll be able to take it over wherever I'm leaning. Okay? So you could do the same thing in side control. Go on your back. I want to control here with the cross face and here with the underhook, and I want to check this hip with my knee. Each of those is a variable. I want my weight distribution square, like collarbone under his collarbone, so that it can't get pushed away. If it's too low, it gets pushed away. If it's too close, it gets pushed over. So when you get into a position, if you want to learn how to understand, like in your live training, not when you're training for a competition, I was talking about that with Raul, that's time to just work on winning, you know? But when you're training, okay, I'm going to spend a week trying to get good at this today, you know, or this week. I'm going to play bottom side control. Or every time I get into that, the first thing I'm going to think is I'm going to organize my mind, right? I'm going to check in on the points of interest and make sure that I'm addressing or winning these little technical battles, right? That will become second nature to you. If you do it 100 times in a month, that position, then you may have to come back and check in on it every once in a while, but for the most part, you will reorder how you behave in a situation. And then you can explicitly focus on the choices you're making. You don't have to explicitly focus on all this other shit. Right? And really when two guys are fighting, I mean, athleticism is a factor, there's no doubt, mindset, but like if we're talking just technically, let's remove everything else, right? All things held constant, two people fighting, much more technical person doesn't have to focus on the smaller battles because they're internalized and they're able to like focus on what they're looking ahead to what they're gonna do because everything else is just, they respond well to it naturally. But that's because at one point they focused on that instead of winning. Right? So when you get into a position, don't just organize your game like a flowchart. Organize yourself in every position to understand where the position breaks down and how to stop it from breaking down. Okay? Next thing, one more concept before we get into all the moves. Go on your elbows again. In any control position, whether it's the back, a leg lock, an arm lock, side control, mount, front headlock, if I get you into that position and I now have won this position, so I connected to you, I broke your balance, and I took a position, right? From that position, what can I do? There's only a few things in general, lots of things specifically, but there's only a few things in general I can do. I can attack you, right? You can interfere with my attack and I can mitigate it and attack you. Like you grab my hands, I free them and I grab your hands, but we stay in the position, right? I can transition to another position, right? Or let's say I try high elbow, let's say you roll. Or I can track the position through movement. Okay, so I'll give you, let's go to a leg lock just so I can demonstrate that this isn't just in one place. You know? I go here, you put your foot on me. I take it off, I've mitigated something. Okay? I heel hook you, I'm attacking. Okay? You go to turn out. I track you. You go to turn out. I transition. Now, do me a favor and try to think of a move or an answer that doesn't fit into one of those categories. I'll bet you $100 you can't do it. Okay? So the reason this stuff's important, it's not just like showing off with concepts. These are ones that I think help you design your game without wasting time. When I'm thinking about, okay, I'm working on back control, right? From the back control, what do I need? Well, first I need 4 things. I need like an ability to attack from there. I need to understand what gets in the way and how to easily stop it. I need to understand how to get from there to other places. And I need to understand how to keep that when someone's trying to move out of it, right? And if you have those things, you're good in that position, period. So organizing the variables of a position and understanding the landscape of a position by fitting in attacks, mitigations, tracks, and transitions, or use your own words, but those things, find them in every position and you'll get better, okay? So when we're doing it, I'm gonna show moves, but when I'm showing the moves, try to like think to yourself, like, is this a tracking answer? Is this a transition answer? Is this a mitigation answer? Is this an attack? Make sense? Okay. So arm and guillotine. How we pull guard depends on what attack we're using. We're not gonna circle and pull guard like we would with a high elbow, right? We're gonna like sit into guard because we have an arm in, we're not afraid of him rolling. So again, what attack you're using will dictate what type of guard pull you're using. But if I'm gonna sit in on a guillotine, it's usually because he's like throwing his arm up. Like this is what gives you an arm in guillotine. And this happens, people, they put their arm here, right? So from there, I'm gonna pull his arm and his chin apart and I'm gonna lean into him like this. Okay, once I feel that his weight is in his hips, then I'm gonna sit. And it's the opposite of a tech stand. So this is a tech stand, this is a tech sit. Okay, now stay up if you can, your partner will stay up. You're trying to land on your hip, not on your lower back. You're on your hip. Your foot is connected to their hip and your knee is inside this space, which we call a pass box. Okay, so your knee is inside the pass box. Your other leg wraps over the far hip, and we're in position right now to attack the choke. In this case, it's more of a choke. Blocks the windpipe. Okay, strangles block the carotids. And the truth is, sometimes you do a little both. So let's come back. Let's angle off here. Good. So, why do I want his weight in his hips? Because if I sit when he's leaning forward, he's gonna jump over me. And I don't wanna deal with that. So let's come back. So before I sit, I put him as far as possible from that movement. I lean his weight like that. So try to stay on your knees, yeah? There, you just feel it. If you feel like you hit a wall, that's right, and you can sit. Okay, now you connect your hands, and you throw the leg over. Could you have connected your hands before? Yes, you could. Okay? So this is the position we're in for the choke. Let's rotate. So we're on our side, and our armpit locks in. See where that crown bends? You gotta stay above that. People will tell you to be here, and yeah, it does increase pressure, but people are gonna slip their head out. Okay, so you wanna be locked where there's a handle, right? Where the head bends. You wanna be in the back of there. That's your back stop. So his head can't look up. Try to look up, can't look up, okay? This part of your wrist, that's what's in his windpipe, right there. You have to consciously aim this for that. Otherwise, you'll be hitting soft parts and they don't hurt and they don't cause problems. You want it to be right there, okay? Now, just to show you, I can do this just like this with my armpit and with my hand. Fast, hard tap, he's not comfortable, okay? That's to show you that really all that this choke is pressure coming up through the throat, the head being jammed down into it, and my hips being on the side. That's it, okay? So everything else either interferes with that or helps. That's it. So what I want this hand to do then is to help this hand go up. So what people often do with this hand is they pull it. So you're pulling into the shoulder and you're pulling this arm past the point of interest. Right? What you actually want to do with this hand is drive your elbow down. It's going to feel weird because it doesn't feel strong. But all you need is a couple inches of pressure upwards. So both elbows actually go down. So watch my elbow. Like that. Compress. Okay? This elbow drives to my hip like that, and this elbow goes in like that. And now I can press that up into his throat. Yeah, how's that feel?
Not nice.
Not nice.
Are you blocking your elbow like on the high side leg as you're trying to drive it down?
Am I blocking it?
The way you have your leg up as you're driving it down, doesn't sort of sit.
No, it could pass right past that. You'll feel it.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, but it shouldn't happen. Okay? Angle. We'll do this one more time. Okay. Chin pick, shoulder locked in. You got your footing and you have the elbow. You drive your opponent forward. For this, your opponent's gonna have an open arm. Okay, we'll talk about other stuff after, don't worry. But open arm. Like that, and now I'm gonna sit. Connect my hands and trap my guard. Okay? From here, it's really strong hands. Head closes this space. Shouldn't be looking at anything. You should compress and close all this space. Down with your shoulder and elbow, up with your wrist, and just everything else in your body. Easiest way I can explain this. Everything else in your body helps that. Okay? Your legs help that. Your arm helps that. Your chest helps that. Compress them into the wrist. Like that. Let's give it a shot, guys. Don't feel bad to not keep up. If you want to work, you feel like I didn't get that down, you want to learn an arm and guillotine today, learn an arm and guillotine today. It's a productive day if you learn one thing, right? Okay, so when you're attacking the arm in, like what is someone going to do to you? And this is where, I don't know what I said. I'll take the, I made a great joke. So, listen, when you're building out a system, I attack the position on you, I collect it. Remember we talked about like mitigation, tracking, transitioning, and attacking, right? So the need to track or transition, like that should almost come first. Why? Because if I get into a position, what I want to take away from you first is your ability to flip it on me. So in my training, like how I order my priorities, right? You're talking about order of operations. That's priority one. Like for me, getting to a front headlock, them fucking with my hands, me going to a darce. That is not priority one because it's a static problem. You know what I mean? Like I was stuck there, I had time to think about it. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about pulling guard, you hopping over me and bundling my legs. I'm worried about you stacking me and jumping over passing, right? So this is general stuff now. I'm showing you how it applies to the system, but in general, that's how you order stuff. If you want to be better than people, right? You want to anticipate what they're going to do. That the jiu-jitsu, there's nothing more important than jiu-jitsu. Like even leverage, people say leverage is the most important. It's not true. Anticipation is the most important. And if you want proof of that, watch any combat sport, right? And watch how many people that look funky or look weird or people say they're doing something wrong win a lot, right? And it's just you don't see what they're doing right. They know what the other person's going to do in response to what they're doing. Now, is that to say that their styles are the best? No, maybe they would be better if they were fundamentally more sound. Like a Tony Ferguson, for example, you know? But did Tony just win all those fights like randomly? No, he's bringing people into a chaotic situation that he understands better than they do because if he fought them fundamentally, he'd probably lose half those fights, okay? So anticipation is your superpower, right? And So then what's most important is being able to anticipate what they're gonna wanna do most, and what they're gonna wanna do most is what takes away from you, okay? So I get into this position, I grab the front headlock, I'm pulling guard. My number one threat is them hopping over me to a cross-body position, and then after that, it's them stacking me. Why is them stacking me less worrisome than them stacking me tripoding? Why is them tripoding and putting their weight on me less of a concern than them hopping over me?
Because you're not flanked yet.
Sorry?
You're not flanked.
Well, yeah, yet is the real key there.
Yet.
Yet. One happens faster, right? One happens in the moment. If I pull guard and I didn't lean weight into them, or they're surprisingly athletic, I'm pulling and they're already hopping over. So this has to be the first thing that I'm concerned about, right? So what am I gonna do to mitigate that? I'm gonna show you two movements, right? It depends on where I'm at. If they hop over me and I'm still up like this, so get over, you can go ahead, get all the way over. I'm still up. Let's say I snap them down and I was seated. This is where a hip heist works, okay? You keep their chin in your hand, you pull with your hand, you turn your knees towards your hand. Okay, you move hip weight towards them first, and then you pull your legs up, and you're back in position. So really that simple. You already know how to tech stand. You're tech standing with a chin pick and a hip bump. That's it, okay? So I maybe snapped him down right here, and he was quick, and he hopped over. He used the momentum of the snap down to hop over, right? So I keep the chin pick close, I bump, and I'm up. Now, what happens to me a lot because I'm pulling guard is people hop over and I'm on my back's on that. This is where I'm going to teach you not to do what most people will teach you to do. Because the most common answer here is to get up on your elbow, get up on your hand, and get up. And if you watch film, 98% of the time that someone tries that, they lose. Because the guy will circle him. And that movement is just stronger. Like they're close, but one's on top. So like two movements are equal, one's on top, that one wins. All right? So if I'm ahead of him in my timing, I might still win. But if we're equal in our timing, he'll win. And I don't like that. I want to win. If I'm ahead, I want to win if we're equal. Right? So if you're on your back, stay on your back and just block his hip or his knee. I like his hip. Okay? Turn your knees towards him and get on your side. From here, if you maintain the chin pick and you get your hips out far enough, you just turn your belly to the mat. Right? And now you can climb up on that underhook, and you can do it again. Yeah, you're finished, right? So in that case, I'm tracking, right? He's taking the position away from me, I still have a piece of it, I'm getting my hips back into position. And we're seeing something in general about front headlocks here. I trap your head, I get my hips in position to win. That's the battle. Right? And with look, anything you see from a front headlock will fall into that category. Like even other movements, high elbow, counters, all of it. The person needs to get a better hip position on you, right? Or they need to free their head. So if you trap their head and they can't free their head, they're gonna move their hips, right? Look at wrestlers. You grab my front head. I sit up, right? I'm trying to move my hips. Can't move my hips this way. I'm moving the other way, I free my head. Those are your early escapes to that position, right? All the escapes are the same. They're me trying to either clear that chin pick and get my head out, or me trying to get hip position. So if I have a good front headlock and you can't free your head, your only thing you can do is maneuver your hips into a better position than mine. And if I'm anticipating that, I'm always moving my hips to win, okay? So we're seated. He gets cross body on me. He's already cross body on me here. Post, turn, pump, and up. Pull guard, he'll hop over, you're on your back this time. Push, turn, hip escape, belly down, military walk, and you're up. Let's give it a shot, guys. Okay, so the one thing people were having the problem with the most was like, you're here, you throw your hips once, you try to turn, right? Or you try to use your elbows to pick your own weight up. If you move your hips away a few times, and there will be a fight, they're coming forward, so you're gonna have to like fight your hips out. If you do it enough, you'll be north-south and you'll kind of fall into belly down. And you wanna fall into your belly and your hips connected to the mat, okay? if you take ownership of your own weight, they will leave. Okay, they'll just run away. You won't have enough forcing them to stay where they are. So I have my front headlock, I get my hips flat connected to the mat, and now I'll be able to use their weight pulling away to pull myself up, right? But if I pick myself up, they're gonna be able to get away. Does that make sense? Okay. So now the next problem that we have when we're trying to finish this type of guillotine, especially against bigger people, because if someone's quicker, more athletic, we'll here a little bit, then hopping over, yeah, that's probably what they're gonna do. But maybe they're a little bit behind you and maybe they're a little bit bigger, okay? So what happens often in those instances is that they tripod into you. So I'm trying to get this head down towards my hip, right? They're trying to get their head up and their weight into their shoulder. So tripod, like that, okay? Now, if you can just hip out, drive their head in and finish, then this isn't a problem. But sometimes this is a problem, right? And if you wait here long enough, a lot of times guys will put their hand on like your face or something. So take a hand on my face and just rip your head out. Yeah. At a high level, that happens all the time, okay? So, and if you grab somebody like that and you pull guard and then they pop their head out, they can score too. That's what happened to me in the second round of ADCC trials this year. Right? In a match that I would have otherwise won. Lost by those two, and that was the reason. So we want to make sure that they can't do that. Okay, so go ahead and get up. All right, so when this happens, if I feel I can finish the choke, maybe I'll go to close guard and finish the choke. But if I really do feel like their shoulder is leaning into me and they've got a good understanding of what's going on, I'm going to put butterfly hooks in, okay, and I'm going to sweep them wherever they're going. So what do I mean? If he's leaning hard, they start to walk into your shoulder like that, then I'm going to take him that direction. Okay? When you take somebody over that direction, put your head on the mat to help you walk over them. Come back. Sometimes you get here and they start leaning back this way. Easy enough. You have their head, foot on the floor, and a hook. Your hips are out, it's a hook sweep. And the same thing here, you could go right into an anaconda, or you could put your head on the floor and you could walk over. And it's up to you what you want to use. If they're leaning straight into you, it's as simple as bringing your knees to your chest and then kicking as you pressure down on their head. So in all of these cases, there should be some lean into you with this shoulder, but as you fight, that's when the directions become necessary. Because he should be leaning this way to stop the choke, right? So go ahead, get up. He should be doing this. But as I start to try and sweep him that way, he leans there, and then when I go this way, he goes back. That's the game, right? So from here, I go down on the head, and I pull my knees to my chest. And then I kick him over the top. You could use momentum to follow him, or if you have trouble with that, you can rock your knees to get to your chest. Once your center of gravity passes over your shoulders, just kick your legs. Then you'll be on top, okay? So if you're like you look like you're a beached whale, right? Just swing your legs, let them come up, let them come down, do it a few times, get a feel for the movement, and then when the weight starts to tip, help it. Push it over the top of the mountain, right? So start, he's really driving you this way, Foot on the ground, drive into the shoulder, lift the chin, and use the hook. Try to stay up if you can a little, yes. Right? The harder he is to sweep, the more you want to take him over his shoulder. Okay? Put your head on the mat, and come on up. Come back. If he resists that by switching his weight the other way, no problem. Take his head down and sweep him. Okay? Come back. And if he manages to fight back and forth successfully, right, you use that choke to draw him in, and then you bring your knees to your chest, and as his center of gravity becomes suspended in the air, we kick it over. And we can follow on momentum, or we can take a second swing to carry ourselves over. Does that make sense, guys? Let's do it.
Yeah, it rolled on your head. It rolled on my head.
Okay, so let's just check in a little bit. Like, what are some of the concepts we covered? Give me some examples.
Grab the chin.
Grab the chin. Sure. So organization, right? Order of operations. Tracking. Okay, so that was part of kind of the framework, right? When we get into a position, there's a position where we can attack from. There's four main things that happen. What are those things? One of them is that they move and we track the position, meaning we find it through movement. Mitigation. So we stay in the position, and that's what we're going to do now. We solve a problem in place. Okay? Transitioning. Change positions. Attack. Right, you're in the position for that purpose. That should be the first thing you try to do. Yeah, we did arm and guillotine for sure, yeah. But so, like, so far, those have been your main concepts, right? To organize your jiu-jitsu, not just in terms of the moves and how they connect, but in terms of priorities and weighing solutions to problems and understanding all the variables in the position, right? Order of operations, you have a step, you have steps for everything, and they go one through whatever. Okay, and that's, again, that's not just for moves, but that's for game design in general, priorities, right? Now we get into a position, we can attack, we can mitigate, we can track, we can transition, right? If anybody can come up with a reason for me why I want, even an exception to any of these concepts, I would love to hear it. I'm not just saying that shit. I'm not gonna like hear it. Fuck you, don't have an answer for me. I'm not like that at all. I came up with these, and I think they're bulletproof because I've been open to hearing people say that could be wrong, this is why, right? And that's to say that doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can explain any of those things. To mean it's objective just means that there's nothing that says it's wrong. It doesn't mean there's not another concept that can replace it. And in jiu-jitsu there's a lot of that because there's a lot of us out here just making shit up, right? So we're gonna have our own way of explaining it, and that's okay. That it's correct is important. That it's the only thing is probably bullshit. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Which category do you put like baiting? Of those four categories,
Yeah.
like if you're baiting somebody into doing something, do you
People
consider that
typically
as an attack or like a separate category of thought?
Well, it's an attack, but it's an attack with high risk. People usually use chess terminology for that. People call it a gambit. You give something to get something. Yeah. So that's a concept, and it's an attack, right? But it's an attack that comes with a higher tolerance for risk, if that makes sense. Okay. So let's get into some attacks now, and these are mostly mitigations, right? So when I sit into the guard, right, what some people will do is they'll sag over this direction, which would be part of the right answer if I had two hands on their neck. Right, like if I had a high elbow guillotine, part of the answer would be to go that way, but it would be to go all the way out, right? But when you have an arm in, people do it because they feel the pressure of the choke and they know that this direction may relieve some of that pressure, so they fall to their side. As somebody is doing this, if you retain control of their chin and their arm, they cannot go anywhere. Okay, chin and elbow specifically, they're not moving. They might come back up, they might try to run into a wall, but they're not getting away. If you want to attack them when they do this, wedge yourself under their shoulder. This is the most important part. If your shoulder and your chest occupy the space between their shoulder and the mat, then their shoulder is going to start getting compressed into the mat. You're going to be able to capture anacondas from here. Okay? How you connect your hands, there's lots of different ways. Essentially what you're trying to do is go from a reverse seatbelt type grip, front headlock, to a figure four. Some people like to pull this arm and run it through. Some people just fold the elbow over. I think maintaining connection between your hands is really good. I think besides that, however you get there is up to you. It's okay. Right? So I'm here, we try to maintain connection between our hands. How deep do you want this arm? I think it really depends. For me personally, I like to have my bicep and elbow, like where it bends there. I like to have that sit right around the corner of his neck. So if his head is just shelved on my bicep, and when I lift my forearm, it comes to his throat, That's where I like the anaconda. But, you know, there are ADCC champions who teach this differently, and it works both of them. So I think we have different length arms, and things may fit a little differently for each of us. What's really important with these chokes is that you know the conceptual components, okay? The conceptual components are that this shoulder's wedged off the mat, right? There's a backstop on this head, meaning that the head can't move freely backwards, right? The head and arm are trapped in a figure 4, and you have pressure on the carotid here, and the shoulder moves into the carotid there. Why is understanding that important? Because when you know what that squeeze feels like, you'll adjust to it. And that's really how we grapple, right? You have this set of technical instructions, but like cooking, some tomatoes are sweeter than others. Sometimes you add some sugar, right? You know what the end goal is, and you have instructions on how to get there, but you have a general understanding that helps you when the instructions fail, okay? So, what do I want in general with this? I want his head and arm trapped between my arms. I want his head blocked from moving backwards with my torso. I want his shoulder off the ground, right? And then when I squeeze, I want to be able to row this elbow back to drive into the carotid, and I want to be able to squeeze this shoulder down into the carotid. So if I do all that nice and slow, right, and why do I go slow? Because if I go fast, it'll feel like a pure crank, right? But if I have the position and I put it on slowly, I walk under him, there you go. It comes on slower, and then he feels like he might pass out, right? And that's what I want to get a feeling for. And the truth is, like, anything that makes somebody tap is valid, so you can use whatever you want, as long as you don't do it too fast, too hard, or you give them a chance to tap. It's all fine, but let's learn how to do it really well. So we're in, come on. We're in our arm in, guillotine, and as we fall to our side, he rolls. We pull ourselves under the shoulder. Our grips on the chin and the elbow are what maintain our control as we do this, okay? From here, guys, I'm really just trying to connect my hands and then get my figure 4. Once I have my figure 4, I try to get this hand as high up on his shoulder as possible, and I try to walk my hip under his head like that. That's my backstop. Okay? Some people bridge here, some people chop the leg here. All fine, it all helps. Okay? But what gets the strangle, close your elbows together as tight as you can, project your chest into them, and roll your elbow back. That's the sound of that. Let's give it a shot.
Let's do one-on-one.
His lat is resting on my chest and shoulder like this. I can't be here. Like if I see his shoulder in front of me, it's no good. I want to see his armpit. Okay? Now the next thing, when I lock this up and I walk down this way, I don't walk and loosen up here. I stay with my hips walk under and my upper body stays connected where it is. Okay? So if I move down and I slide down, I'm just freeing his shoulder.
So upper body static, lower body is moving.
Exactly. Yeah. Quick troubleshoot. Where did my There it is. Okay, quick troubleshoot. The biggest problem people are having, one of two things. Either they're not occupying enough space. Here, just get on your right side, yeah. They're not occupying enough space under the shoulder, or they're taking it and then they're vacating it to get their hips here. Okay, so you take this space first, walk up, and then you move your hips under him, but this doesn't move. I keep my chest connected. That's what causes the tension. It's like if you bend the heel hook, you let your feet go. Not you can't actually do that, but you understand what I'm saying in general, right? I was just saying to them in the simplest sense. Yeah. So in general, submissions are like you're stopping something from moving, and you're moving while that thing is stopped, right? So if you want to break something, you have to reduce its mobility and then take it where it doesn't go, right? That's how you create pressure. So what a lot of people do is they get control of something, and then as they move to step 2, they release step 1. right? So in general, layer your steps slowly and carefully when you drill. If doing the second thing makes you feel like the first thing is failing, there's a mistake somewhere, right? And that there will be. So you're not retarded, you know, like this is hard. It's not easy, it takes time. So go slow, drill consciously, intentionally, and layer your steps on top of each other. And like there are jiu-jitsu is kind of two things at once, right? There's the heuristic side, which that's where I'm giving you these general concepts, and then there's the really specific side, and people lean one way or another for marketing purposes, but like they're both there. And if you look at like any skill, playing guitar, cooking, anything, right? The people who are really the fucking best at it, right? And I'm not saying I am, I'm not, right? I'm good, I'm not the best. But the people who are the best, who I pay close attention to, they all kind of are the same about that. They're not like, there's no gimmick. You know what I mean? There's general concepts, and then there's very hard to gain specifics, and there's no shortcut. Learning the concepts early helps because you have direction, you will learn faster, right? But you will not gain mastery without mastery of both, right? Because even if you understand the concepts fucking in and out, if you don't know the steps and how it feels, it's like understanding what poetry sounds like but not speaking the language. Does that make any fucking sense? Like, no, you need words. And then when you gain enough words, right? Ryan Hall uses this analogy. If you've ever seen him in an interview, he says this a lot, because you collect words, and then you master conversation, right? And there's two things going on at once. There's your general understanding of how to put together sentences and express ideas, and there's your use of very specific messages, right? So both of these things are important. The technical part will take longer. Like if you can learn the concepts as you go and have a good direction, you'll be not wasting time learning technical paths that don't work for you too much, right? So that's gonna save you a lot of time. But there is no cheat code, right? You have to train jiu-jitsu for a long time to get good at jiu-jitsu. And what I mean by a long time is a lot of hours, right? Also over time helps, but there's nobody who got really, really good as fast as you think. Even the best guys had a base of skills that they transitioned over, right? And they spent a ridiculous amount of time on the mat, a ridiculous amount of time. I've never won a world championship. When I was blue to brown, I was spending 6 hours a day, like fucking training every day, you know? And everyone I know who's really good, they all did that. So you don't maybe have that time. That's fine, I'm not here to make you feel bad. I'm here to tell you, like, if you use a smart methodology, you'll make the best use of the time you have, you'll progress fast, you'll feel good, you'll have fun. That's what you want, right? You want to have fun. So let's go on to one or two more moves, and then we'll do a Q&A, okay? And then we'll roll as much as possible today. So now, like a very clear mitigation now. I'm in position to use a front headlock, and the hand that I want to control his head with is being interfered with. But nothing else is being interfered with. So I'm not in a rush, and it's not a big priority. What do I mean by it's not a big priority? When I'm learning the position, I train other things first. I get them down, I understand them first. Learn how to work the landscape around my main attack, and then layer on auxiliary attacks. Okay, and that's what this is. It's a secondary attack for me in this context. So here actually, somebody starts to mess with my left arm. My general rule is punch my right arm in. So he grabs my left arm, I'm gonna punch my right arm. When I do this, I'll switch my base. So I drop my knee, and I open my other knee, and I swing my arm in to help out, to grab it. Now you have multiple moves here. You have anaconda entrances, you have Japanese neckties, you have Peruvian neckties, caveman neckties. There's so many cool things you can do. I'm just gonna show you a bunch. Let's say a little more. So now that I'm grabbing the hand that he's also grabbing, so go ahead, grab that hand. I can usually pull this one free, right? And I connect, you can use Gable or S, right? I like S, I have strong fingers, so I don't mind it. But if you like Gable, go for it, okay? Now from this position, what I'm looking to do is have my shoulder in his armpit, okay? And my forearm across the back of, like right under the crown of his head, and my elbows are pinched really tight. And I'm gonna drop my left knee, and post my right leg. In this case, drop the knee next to his head again, so you switched your base one direction, you're just switching it back, so that you can drive off of this foot and use this elbow to take his head under his armpit. When you do this, Connect your shoulder to him, lean weight into it, and circle. Okay? From here, you'll be able to lean your head onto his armpit, and that's when you know you have the angle to punch this arm through. Okay? If you want to use your elbow to drive the back of his head down, or you have another technique for this, use your hand, fine. I prefer, again, not to disconnect my hands. But all that's really important is that I have the angle to trap his head and his arm in between my figure four. Okay? Now, how deep you use the figure four, again, some people like to go bicep to the throat and have a lot of arm to work with, right? Some people keep it shallow. And so if you watch the Rotolos, who are probably the best at using a darce right now, they're the guys hitting the most darces on the best people. They're shallow, they don't go deep. Their hand punches through and they connect to it right here. So why is it that that can work and that can work? It's because it's not an essential component of the technique. What's essential is that there's pressure on the carotid, right? They can't, and there's a backstop, and they can't escape their hips to dominant position. What do I mean by that? If you have a darce and you let somebody climb, like you take too much pressure off them, and they climb, you can finish on your hip, but if they get their arm across you, they can take you over, and they can drop their elbow here, and then they can open up the figure four. So, not that sacrifice darces aren't cool, they're fucking cool, but the people who do them understand how to stop that person from getting their arm across and get their elbow into position, okay? The way we're gonna finish it now, so we're gonna put our head on the mat, and we're just gonna walk over him, knee on belly, mount, and if you do this and you don't release the pressure with your arms, you keep it as tight as it was when you were over there, we're doing the same thing. We're putting his head into a cranked, uncomfortable position, and we're moving our hips into dominant position, but we're not releasing any pressure. And from here, we roll our elbow back, and we get a tap. Okay? You can also finish right here. Right? You can also finish here. It's fine, right? But why not take him in a direction that's further from where he gets out? So when I take somebody into a position, if the first thing I do is start, like he's thinking about escaping, and I'm already moving him towards a position that's further from that. So that's like the opposite of the gambit, right? I'm not giving something to get something, I'm taking everything all the time, okay? So let's do that one more time. He grabs the hand, right? I send my arm through, I switch my base, and I get my people call it a vice grip, okay? Get my vice grip. I switch my base again, and I take his head under his armpit. I lean shoulder weight into him to get my angle, connect my head to him, punch my hand through, drop my elbow into the back of his head, and connect my figure four. I drive my head to the mat, slide my knee over him to mount, and now I can press and pull my elbow back, get a nice submission. Let's give it a shot, guys.
Yeah.
You were coming around and you were driving, was your weight driving straight through or down before you said, like, when you, just in that transition moment, because
Okay, now you're gonna roll this elbow towards your top hip. No, you're leaning, roll it. Okay, so let me show you. This elbow is so that's driving my arm. So if I like this, this is, yeah, well from here you can put the darce on. Yeah, grab, up, good. And now compress your chest into your shoulder and draw your elbow back. Okay, so now, yeah.
it was was less painful from the
Yeah,
bone.
there's a couple of
This elbow back. The one.
Yeah, retracting your elbow back, but without pulling away. Like we squeeze and then we pull the elbow back, but we follow it. You know, we move. He's the one who can't move, and like by him being forced to move, he gets tapped. Right. So that's kind of what I'm explaining in general. You stick. If I stick your toes to the ground and move your knee, and that something breaks, right? Because your toes and knee can't move freely together. So that's what you're trying to do in general. And then the next thing is when you're doing these against somebody who's not resisting and like you didn't catch a stiff neck and arm, you caught somebody all relaxed. So you have to go real soft and slow to get the choke. Because if you go quick on someone who's relaxed, it always hurts. And even if it was good, you won't know. People, especially Darcy's, and they're relaxed, like I was saying to you guys, it's gonna feel cranky if you go hard because they're relaxed, right? Like if they're tense, it'll feel different when you're rolling. So go slow, take your time, fit into position before you put the strength in, right? Or any force. When, like on top of that, we want to be able to feel our way into the end goal, okay? So there's these technical details, but like, what do you want? You have the backstop, you have the head and arm trapped, you have an arm, you feel it in the carotid, you can get, you know, all this part up into their other carotid, you're maneuvering to get that feel, and then you're squeezing. And you're trying to do everything like perfectly when you drill it. And the reason you're trying to do it perfectly and slowly and without any force at all is so you know what that feels like, not because that's how moves feel live. Because really what you're doing when you are, like, I don't know who plays Dark Souls, but you know, like you got the energy bar, you gotta be real careful how many swings you take, right? So this is the same thing, right? When you're in a fight, you're assessing, especially if you're fighting at a higher level, you're assessing your energy expenditure. That's almost the biggest thing. Like, can I defend myself and still have energy to attack when it's necessary? Have energy to defend when I'm really in trouble, right? One of the ways you do that is you know what perfect feels like. You know how far what you're doing is from perfect. You know if it's worth doing or not. Okay, because it's not going to be perfect. 80% is usually enough for me. 75%. What about 50% on someone really good, or 60%? That's not worth it to me. You might have a different assessment and based on your athleticism, your gas tank. But for me, if I drill everything perfect, I know what perfect feels like, and when I'm doing it, I know if it's good enough. Good enough is good enough, right? So that's kind of what I'm going for when I roll. I'm trying to be technical, but I'm really focused on timing and movement, right? And getting my connections that I want. And then if something feels good enough, I take it, right? And if it doesn't feel good enough, I don't take it. But I feel that my sense of that wouldn't be very precise if I was drilling shitty, you know? So do everything when you drill, just do it fucking perfect. And of course your capacity for perfect is not great now and it'll never actually be perfect, but it will just keep getting better. That's all that's important. If your capacity to do moves perfect and training gets better and better and better, you'll get better and better and better at transitioning that to live training, okay? So hopefully, it's the end of the camp now. This is the last you'll see me anyway at this camp. Hopefully I'll be back, but it was a lot of fun. Obviously, thank you for signing up for the camp. For those of us who make our living, this is like obviously important to us. And hopefully we give you something back. That's the point, right? I hope you guys got better and you had a good time. And sorry for the fucking you, especially. I hurt your ankle and I feel like shit. If you guys have any questions now, let's start with like the material we did today. Then if you have like bolo questions, I know we covered that. And then if you have questions in general about your progression or anything like that's jiu-jitsu related, because I'm not an expert in anything else, go for it. So the floor is yours. Yeah.
Can you go over the different grips with respect to headlock? What kind of grip you would use in the
I like to use a tight finger with a chin pick or a ball and socket grip, which is very, very similar. So they're almost the same grip, to be honest. Okay, it's just one of them I have your chin, so I'm letting my hand be a little less structured. And the other I don't have your chin, so I'm creating a really hard structure with my hand. Okay, there are other grips, and if a grip feels good to you, then use it. Cool.
One question: what is when you lose on this position? When we lose here, and no, it was the position when you pass or to the other side. Okay, it was to the other side. Okay, what you make when you lose this arm? You have to be here or over
Yes.
this arm. What is when I lose this arm and you come over with this arm? How I go outside now?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Go. You'll come up and there'll be a 2 headlock situation. You'll peel his hand and take your head out.
It's the same. Okay.
Yeah, won't be too much of a problem. No problem, man. It happens. Like you just come up. Sometimes he'll grab your head. You take that off. Take your head out. You're there. Right? You could also let go and decide to escape side control. That's okay if you feel like you're really gonna get fucked up there.
I often get in this sort of that inverted north-south position, and people get up faster than me. How do you?
When you're rolling.
Yeah. So if I often set it up from like half guard or something similar, so their head gets off the mat, and then here. And I try to go for the anaconda, but they sort of get up faster than me.
Two answers. One, if you control their chin and their elbow, go ahead. Keep the chin, keep the elbow. Try to get up. Can't get up.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one. 2, if you had 2 arms on the neck, let go. Like put 2 hands on the neck. Let's say you were using this type of attack.
Yeah.
Okay, put your head on the mat. Bridge. No, come back.
Yeah.
Put your head on the mat.
Yeah.
Head on the mat. Flat. Both you guys flat. Flat. Okay. Both your feet near your butt. Yeah. And bridge. The guy with the higher hips is going to win the roll.
Okay.
100% of the time.
So
Okay?
think about
Yeah.
controlling the elbow and otherwise hip height.
Exactly.
Right.
So whoever has the higher hips. Now, if he has the higher hips, right, when you try to come up, he'll duck his head out the back door. So try to come up, he'll duck his head out the back door, and he'll win.
Right.
Cool. And this is what I mean by organizing yourself.
Yeah.
Find these positions and you find who wins in the general battles and train yourself to do that, and then express yourself on top of that out all your funky shit, you know?
Is there any mechanical reason why you prefer these grips over high risk positions? And when it comes down to finishing?
I think then guillotines are probably one of the positions with the most variation among high level execution. You can watch tons of guys. Gordon Ryan uses high wrist. Gary uses high elbow most of the time, or he used to. Marcelo Garcia, high elbow. Rafa Mendez, low elbow, arm out. You know what I mean? So tons of variation. I think it really feels like it depends a lot on when you connect to somebody's head and arm. Like how big are you? What are your dimensions? And what kind of feels strong to you? I know that sounds like a shitty answer, but that's the best answer I got because I could try to get super specific. But some guys with long arms still use arm ins, and some guys with like short arms still use high elbows. Maybe they have great wrist and shoulder flexibility. I think the big thing is like high elbows are kind of, the reason why they might say they're better is that it's a stronger finish, and you know, when you put a high elbow on, you know if it's in or out immediately, right? You put an arm in, and it's like you figure out whether it's in or out kind of later down the road, and that can be, you're gonna get in some battles, right?
But I meant more like high risk positions. So high risk is great.
It's again, for me, it's like with that, okay, how accessible is it in general and how accessible is it to you? Okay, so in general, someone's gonna grab your wrist. So a high risk position would be less accessible than a low risk position, right? How accessible is it to you? You have long arms and you get the right angle and you're good at it, right? So that's a question to ask when you're looking at like, why do this versus this? Like how accessible is the thing? How easy is it to do? Or how easy is it for you, right? So in general, I think low, this is easier and this is kind of stronger. But if you're really good at this, I would absolutely build it up. Okay?
One question about that extra thing you said, like that extra thing that you need to have for like high level competitions. Like everybody has good technique,
Yeah.
but like you need to like be good at anticipating at the highest level, be good at like knowing your energy level, knowing your energy expenditure and stuff
Yeah.
like that. How do you get those feelings, those things
In training?
better? Yeah, and also like I guess rolling a lot helps, but like
Sure.
what specifically?
Well, yeah. I do a lot of drills that are in between drilling and live drilling. So we play a lot of games, right? Like a good example is you're gonna pressure my guard, you're not allowed to disconnect to it, but you're not allowed to pass, and you're not allowed to get swept. Right, so that's gonna give me this like good sense. If I just drilled butterfly sweeps with a bunch of guys, I'll do that. So they're gonna get a chance to try to move a bunch. It's gonna be high resistance but low complexity. There aren't enough things going on that they can't zero in on the problem, right? So like live drilling is constraints. Think about this. If you were to plot like a graph, 2 axes, and one were to be resistance and one were to be complexity, right? So you can graph training that way. Like if you are drilling, right, you have high, like it's very specific, okay, but it's like there's low resistance, right? So it's complex, but there's no resistance, right? And then if you were to like think about rolling, it's complex and there's high resistance. And if you think about flow rolling, it's complex, but there's low resistance. And then if you were to think about live drilling, right? It's less complex than rolling, but high resistance. So this is just one way you can look at it. So you have these strict ways to separate those, but you can also separate them more generally. Like you can be like, okay, well, we're gonna sort of live drill. We're not gonna like even do like just side control. We're gonna play a game where your constraints are more strict than my constraints, so that I have more advantages to work against physical pressure without all the complexity. You do it, and if your coach doesn't do this, you do it yourself. You go to rolling, we're here to roll today. I'm going to turtle every round, and once I escape turtle, I'm going to hit a sweep that connects, that I'm looking to connect to that. And I'm just gonna do that, you know? So at least you're putting constraints on yourself that help you get better. If you have a coach that's willing to work with you to come up with games like that, that works really well. We play one called catch and release, where one guy's job is to just defend with his back exposed the whole time, and the other guy's job is to take his back and let go, right? And it's like, yes, you could say maybe that'll build bad habits, right? The way that people get good, better at skills, and the way that people get ready for competition are not the fucking same. You know, like when I'm getting better to get better, I'm playing games, I'm like giving myself constraints in training. You know, like when I do every Wednesday night, I don't know why, is I start in turtle and I finish on their back, and I just practice that the whole fucking time, right? While they're rolling with them, right? So then I get ready for a competition. For 3 weeks, I'm giving nothing, I'm taking everything, fuck you, you're my meat, right? And I'm not in a mean way, I'm not really a mean guy, I apologize constantly, you know, like I'm Canadian, so like but that's the game you're playing. You're playing it, and it's a combat sport, you know. So it's like it's not that I'm trying to hit people, or what I consider a jerk is somebody who puts something on faster than you can tap, right? It doesn't give you an opportunity. It's spazzy, so they're elbowing you all the time, like stuff like that. I'm trying to be clean, hard, constant, win everything, lose nothing all the time. But that's what I train when I'm training to prepare for competition, because I don't know their game. They're going to be uncooperative about everything, and I don't want to get surprised. I want to win, you know. If I train like that all the time, I'd be hurt, bored, annoyed, no one would like me, you know, like and I probably would like plateau at a certain point, because I wouldn't be in that like kind of learning mindset where I put myself in positions I'm unfamiliar with. So I hope that helps. I know I'm ranting now, but like take whatever works for you, and hopefully it helps you get better. So that's pretty good. I think we'll call it there. And so for the first 10 minutes of training, let's do a drill so that we can work some of this stuff in, and then we'll go rolling. So we'll do 10 minutes, and I know I've been here to roll every time. I've tried to roll as many people as possible, and I'll roll for as long as I can today. But we'll do a drill so that you guys can run through me a little bit and each other. So we'll get like 6 people, let's say. We'll get 6 stations going, okay? And those stations start in front headlock, and if the person the way you guys will do the other stations, how about this? No, we'll do a king of the mat, because then the best people will be in the middle and you get a chance to roll with them. So we'll do it that way. So the person in the middle is in a front headlock. They're trapped in a front headlock, and you're trying to choke them or sweep them. If you manage to mount them, right, transition to side control and keep them there, right, take their back or finish them, like I said that first, right, then you win. Okay, and you're out either way. Okay, no, you win and you're in a front headlock. So what I mean to say, sorry I'm being confusing now. I'm gonna stay in no matter what, so you get a chance to roll me. So if you tap me, good for you, high five, excellent, but I'll stay in so the next person gets a chance as well. Okay, for the rest of you guys, the winner stays in. And the winner is the person who either choked them or escaped. But they stay in on defense. So you stay in on defense until you get choked. If you keep escaping, then you stay on defense for the whole 10 minutes. All right, so does that make sense? No? Okay, so 5 king of the mats and 1 choke Correy. All right, let's do it. Thank you guys. We're gonna crack.